Hi, I'm Frank, and welcome to my woodturning channel. This week I have a nested set of bowls here. These are pine burl. It's a very unusual pine burl. Normally pine would be very, very light, but this stuff is very, very dense, very heavy, and it's oily and waxy. I mean, this is the finish that I got just from coring, which is unbelievably clean. So it almost turns like an exotic wood that's oily. So sanding might be a bit of a challenge, but we'll see what I get out of this. The first thing we have to do with this cored set of bowls is to put a foot or a tenon on each one of them. And I'm just going to do that using a jam chuck. It's important to measure the bottom thickness to make sure that we leave enough thickness on the bottom of the bowl when putting the tenon on. I'm just using a 1/2 inch bowl gouge, and you can see I use a skew on its side as well to make sure I have a nice crisp edge on the corner of the tenon. Normally I might have trued up the outside when I was doing the tenon, but I'm going to make these bowls very, very thin. I'm going to make them into artistic bowls rather than functional bowls. So I'm truing up the outside of the bowl, just here, sort of mounted in this position in the chuck. And what this allows me to do is when the outside is trued up here and I start the inside, there's absolutely no wobble whatsoever, and I get a nice even consistent wall. Now these cuts are a bit harder because they're kind of from behind, and you have to switch hands to do the cuts. But as I say, it makes sure the bowl doesn't bounce at all around at all, and the wall thickness is very consistent this way. To start the cut, very near the chuck, I use basically a bottoming bowl gouge, which is at around a 60-degree angle. And that lets me cut cleanly this first little bit. And then after that I will switch to just a more traditional swept back grind of a bowl gouge. And here I'm just using a negative rake scraper to take out any little lines or little bumps. With the outside surface all done, I'm going to use a 5/8 inch bowl gouge just to start the roughing process, and then I'll do my finishing cuts with a 1/2 inch bowl gouge on the inside of the surface. Hey, if you're enjoying the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. After I take the tailstock away, I like to make sure that the chuck is still grabbing the bowl really well, so I just make sure it's tight. As I'm making these final cuts now with a sharp gouge and getting thinner and thinner, I've noticed that I can see through the wall of the bowl. And this is quite unusual because this wood is totally dry. But it is very, very oily and very waxy. So the oils and resins or whatever there is in the wood must still be in there. And it's just amazing to be able to see through the bowl. Normally you can only do that with wet wood. Here I'm just doing a little bit of negative rake scraping to get out any little lines, but I have to be very, very careful because the wall thickness now is almost 1/8 of an inch. It's quite thin, so I just don't want to put much pressure on this. I'm just using calipers now to make sure I have enough thickness left in the bottom of the bowl. And I'm going to finish the bottom off with this bottoming bowl gouge. It's sharpened to around a 60-degree angle. This is now the largest of the 3 bowls that I'm just finishing up. The shavings coming off of this wood is just unusual. I've never seen anything like it. It's all sticky and oily and waxy feeling. It just sticks to everything. As you can see there, it doesn't even blow off the lathe. It just sticks to it, and there it is, all sticking to me as well. Oops, can't go in the house that way. These shavings also smell like you've just opened a bottle of Pine Sol. The pine smell is just amazing, really, for wood that's very old and been sitting around for ages. On this largest bowl, I'm using the curved tool rest made by Robust. This helps you get into the very bottom of the larger bowls. And I find it quite handy, this tool rest. I wish it was actually a little bit longer so that the post wasn't in the way of the tool handle, but I can kind of get away with it with the bottoming bowl gouge. I've had all kinds of trouble with the sanding on this wood. It's so oily and waxy that it clogs up the paper immediately. So power sanding just doesn't seem to work. I tried taking the stuff off with a brass brush, as you saw there, but the stuff is just so gummy it just doesn't come off the paper. So that didn't really work for sanding. Next, I tried cleaning the surface all off with acetone first, and maybe that'll get the gummy residue off the surface. So I did both sides and let it dry, and then I tried sanding it after this. And really, I ended up getting the same results. The sandpaper just got gummed up totally. So this didn't really work either. I did also try cleaning the surface off with mineral spirits, and that didn't work. So next I'm going to try this Abernet mesh type sandpaper to see if it works. Maybe I can get the shavings and sawdust out of the mesh. But same as before, I found it just clogged things up too much. So next, I'm going to try wet sanding with this Abernet, and I'm using a citrus solvent, which is basically the same thing as using mineral spirits. This wet sanding approach seemed to work okay. I mean, it took a little bit of time, and it did create a bit of a slurry, but it seemed to wash off a little bit in the liquid every time I dipped it in it. So it gave a reasonable job of sanding this way. The reason I left these bowls thin is I'm going to carve the edges to give it a more natural look, almost as if it's a live edge all the way around the bowl. And then in some areas, of course, it will be actual live edge. So it's just a look I'm going for. To finish off all the bottoms, I'm going to use my vacuum chuck. First I set it up on the chuck and cut away all the wood I can without the vacuum on. And then when I only have a little bit left, I will turn the vacuum on, remove the tailstock, and then totally finish and sand the bottom. Every once in a while you see me cleaning off the tip of the tool. This gummy residue is being left on all the tools. In fact, I had to clean them all off in acetone afterwards before I sharpened them. And I just scrubbed them with a wire brush and dipped them in acetone until all the guck came off of them. I've decided to finish all of these bowls off with the general salad bowl finish. I'm just hoping it adheres well to this oily wood. And after the first coat, it didn't seem too bad, so I think I'll continue with that. The photos I show here at the end only have one coat of finish on them so far. I will do at least two, maybe a third coat, just depends on how it looks. These pieces now have one coat of finish, and you can see how beautifully translucent the wood still is when it's put up to the light. It's just amazing how this pine burl has retained its oils and saps and whatever makes it translucent.